It is BBC Radio Newcastle. It is the sound of the North East. Thank you so much for being with us. Now, with less than a week to go before the polls close in the local elections, we've been finding out about so many issues impacting us here in the North East. And last week, we heard about a brilliant event in Sunderland City Centre, hosted by Tyne and Citizens. And last night, they held a similar event in Newcastle. So let's find out more about that, on the ways that the organisation help our local communities. And let's find out what community organisers are. And let's find out what Tyne and Citizens is. So I'm joined by Michael Thompson and Sarah Bryson. Welcome to the show. How are you doing, Sarah?
Yeah, I'm full of cold, but I'm all right. It's a sunny day.
Oh, I know. So many people have been coming down with this, but it is a sunny day and you sound grand, so that'll do. And Michael, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm great. Thank you. It's lovely to be here.
Brilliant. So loads of people will know what Citizens Advice is because Hannah, our brilliant Hannah Cooper, comes on and chats week in, week out about all sorts of things that hopefully make life easier for people. So what is Tyne and Wear Citizens? So tell us what that is.
So Tyne and Wear Citizens is an alliance of member institutions from across civil society.
Okay.
So we have institutions of education, schools, universities. Newcastle University is one of our members. We have institutions from the faith sector, so churches, mosques, and then the community sector as well, so charities and other organisations doing amazing stuff across the North East. Citizens Advice obviously falls into that kind of community sector, and they're one of our members. They just happen to have the same citizens word in their name.
Okay, so I'm fully understanding all of this now, which is good. So how did you come to work for them, Sarah, and tell us what you do as a community organiser then?
I guess I came to work for them because I'd spent decades trying to tackle issues like child poverty and doing it in more from a charitable perspective. And I got interested in, like, how do you change the world? How do you actually do something to tackle, eradicate a big problem like child poverty? And started to move more in the justice space, because I think if you get justice, you don't need charity.
And that's interesting.
That got me moving into more the community organising thing of trying to understand and begin to tackle the more systemic issues that underpin. So rather than like setting up a food bank to tackle the issue of child poverty, it's looking at like, why are people using a food bank? And one of the biggest reasons, especially here in the North East, is because people don't earn enough. So in-work poverty is one of the big drivers of child poverty in our region.
Because I think it's quite a lot of people, whenever ever we talk about this, we're always going to get, we'll get a lot of texts that are absolutely understanding and getting it. But then we'll get texts from people going, yeah, but they buy fags, and yeah, but they've got a TV, and yeah, but they've got a phone. But I think having a phone now is kind of a basic need, really. Yeah. But just talk us through that kind of thinking. If people are listening now, talk us through that.
Yeah, I think it would be a lot easier if that was the cause of poverty. But what we have at the minute is most people in poverty are working but don't earn enough to live on. And with the cost of living rising, cost of rent, cost of mortgages, interest rates going up, cost of food, we're seeing that people, their minimum wage doesn't provide enough to allow people to pay for the basic essentials. So instead of providing a charity response, community organising looks at it and thinks, okay, so if people earned enough to live on, then we wouldn't need a food bank. And so one of the campaigns that we're most known for, Tyne and Wear Citizens and Citizens UK, is the Living Wage campaign. That started from Citizens and Community Organising, which is that flipping it a bit, looking at the systemic root cause of the problem and trying to find a solution. We don't just talk about problems, we have a solution or an ask, and then we will say to people, will you or will you not pay a living wage, rather than just talk about how terrible poverty is, and we'll campaign on that until we win it.
Right, that's interesting. So what's it like bringing people together then, Michael? Because presumably this is about, because politics at the minute, it does seem like, and obviously I've got to be very careful the way that we chat now because we've got the election coming up on May the 7th, but it does seem there's a lot of shouting at each other, not really listening to each other on each side, really. It's become very divisive. What's it like trying to bring people together from all sorts of different political spectrums, I suppose?
I think it's really great because, it gives people an opportunity to work on issues that are in common.
Yeah.
And that's really the point. I mean, everybody, no matter what political spectrum you're part of or what background that you have, like everybody has experiences with jobs, or low wages, or dentists, or doctors,
or roads, or
education, or roads, or exactly. And so we bring those people together not to think about the things that divide us. In fact, if anything, we leave the things that divide us at the door.
That's interesting.
Together, but it's also just really fun. It's also great to just have experiences that people don't normally have. So I used to be a school chaplain. I used to work at St Thomas More in North Shields. I was there for 10 years. It's my old school as well.
Oh my gosh.
And I always remember one of the first Tyne Away Citizens assemblies that we had about 8 or 9 years ago. There was a female Church of England priest on the stage leading it, and one of my young people said to me, "Wow, I've never seen a female priest before," because we were a Catholic school, right? So it was such an unusual thing. And I know we've had so many experiences where people have met their first Muslims, or people have met their first this or that,
a trans person,
exactly,
from different,
and it's just great to really build that trust, and that's what we aim to do. We build trust across difference by campaigning on issues that are important to everyone,
to everybody. That's the interesting thing, isn't it? Is that there is more that probably brings us together than tears us apart. To what extent do you think, Sarah, that the reason that we sometimes shout at each other is because we're doing it from a keyboard and we're not actually talking human to human? I wonder, do you think that's changed the way that we talk about politics?
Yeah, absolutely. And the way community organising works is very relational. So we do everything face to face. It's very countercultural in that way. But I think it's also just because we have to acknowledge that things are harder for people. Like the way they get by is much tougher, and a lot of the people that we talk to say, they don't expect their children to have a better life than they've had. So I think people are rightly angry. They're right to be angry that they can't get a dentist appointment, or that they're working hard yet can't afford the basics in life. But I think that gets misdirected, and it's very easy to blame other people for that. And what we're trying to do in community organising is bring people together around those issues and say, okay, instead of shouting or getting angry at the telly, or getting angry online, why not come together with other people who are also angry about the lack of dental NHS dentists that they can register with, and let's see if we can do something about it. And I think that takes away that anger, because people feel like they're doing something and begin to realise, you know what, if we don't like something, we can do something about it, and it is actually possible to change things. I think a lot of us feel like, well, you can't change things like wages or dentists or the price of bus fares, and what we're showing people is that you absolutely can, but you have to work with others
together.
Yes.
So it's cooperation as opposed to everybody sort of shouting at each other. Yeah, it is very, very interesting in these particular times. I think that is super, super interesting. And of course, you did the event in Sunderland and you did one in Newcastle last night.
Yeah,
so
just on Tuesday.
Yeah, Tuesday. Yeah. Sorry. So tell us how that worked, Michael. What happened there?
So we were setting out as an alliance of member institutions our campaign priorities for the year ahead, and those campaign priorities on community safety, NHS dentistry and SEND provision, like you talked about on the show earlier in the week.
Yes, everybody's very, very keen on all of those things.
Those issues were a year's worth of work of deep listening, thousands of one-to-one conversations asking the question, what is putting pressure on you, the people in your community and the people that you love.
Yeah.
And when all of those member institutions, we've got 37 member institutions from across civil society, came together to say, well, what is putting pressure on it, was these 3 campaigns that emerged. And so from them, we have campaign action teams who are working on each of those 3 issues to think about, well, what are the changes that we want to make? And so our assemblies with the local elections, we're trying to engage the candidates to say, well, these are our campaigns. This is what we hope to achieve. We're right at the beginning of it, but we have loads of ideas. Will you work with us if you're elected, to help us in the capacity that you have as local councillors or leader of the council or whatever?
That's very interesting. So it's not about people not listening to each other, and you yourselves, like the BBC, like many sort of organisations, you are non-partisan, you're impartial. So you don't have a political allegiance. You can't have a political allegiance. What you are is open to listening to everybody.
Yeah, and we're interested in working with power. So we're a charity.
Yes.
We don't endorse any political party or candidate. But what we're interested in is, we have a saying in community organising, which is, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. So if you're not around the table with decision makers discussing the problems and coming up with solutions, other people are doing it on your behalf.
Yeah.
And then you have to live with that. So we're trying to build a relationship with power holders to say, like, no one council or councillor can solve everything, but together we might stand a chance. And we want to hold our elected officials accountable. They've been elected to act on our behalf, and if no one can get an NHS dentist, then local authorities don't have authority over that, but they can help us work on it to make something positive happen.
And to speak to power.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair. It's so interesting. We're going to chat more in 2 ticks. If you would like any questions, you're very welcome. With 2 brilliant people today, Michael and Sarah, community organiser at Tyne and Weir Citizens. I feel like I'm learning stuff. It is 22 minutes to 12. We're going to give you clue number 1 and 2 on the tune twister. Then we'll play Robson and we'll come back very shortly. Right, it is BBC Radio Newcastle. It is the sound of the North East. Now, with less than a week to go before the polls close in the local elections, we can find out about all sorts of issues impacting us here in the North East. So there's the day-to-day things that impact us all, you know, whichever side of the political spectrum you are coming from. And I'm joined today by 2 brilliant people from Tyne and Weir Citizens, Michael Thompson and Sarah Bryson, community organisers. And you were just telling me something really interesting off air there, Sarah, that this idea of community organisers coming together, and this isn't about being part of one political movement, it's apolitical really, this has come from the States, this idea, come from America.
Yeah, it started in Chicago in the 1930s in a place called Back of the Yards, when obviously difficult economic times, a lot of division and divisive politics. And it was really the belief that there has to be a different way of doing politics, politics with a small p, and bringing people together to change their community. And famously, Barack Obama was a community organiser in Chicago. He did his training doing this type of work. The civil rights movement is probably the best example of it, of people like Martin Luther King Jr. and Rosa Parks, who were trained community organisers.
Martin Luther King came here, didn't he?
Yeah,
to Newcastle.
Exactly. And it's just a methodology of change. There's lots of ways to change the world, and community organising is just one of the methods that we use to try and do that.
Very interesting. And there are things that you have changed then, Michael. So talk to us about some of the sort of campaigns that you've organised.
One of my highlights when I was working with young people at St Thomas More was students would always come into year 12 and they would say, Michael, why is it that I'm now paying adult fare on the bus?
Yeah.
I was getting the 308 home or to school or sixth form, and before the summer holidays I was paying 80 pence or whatever it was, and now I'm paying £2.10, £2.50 per journey.
Which is a lot if you're a kid.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I first started at Thomas More, before I'd come across organising, I used to think, just be empathetic. Yeah, I know that sucks, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But then like learning about organising and the way that we can make things change by building our power, I asked them, well, do you want to do something about it? And the young people were like, oh, I don't know if I can. I don't know if I can use my voice. But then, you know, we use the methodology, the methods that have come from the States and all of this that we're talking about. And eventually we managed to get a £1 bus fare for all 16 to 21 year olds in the region.
That's phenomenal.
That campaign was over 5 years, and we did a lot of listening. You know, we heard loads of stories from students who got off the bus to stop early because they couldn't afford to take it all the way home. Or students that were paying working part-time and being paid a child's minimum wage of £4.50 an hour, as it was, but paying £5 to get there on the bus and back.
Doesn't make much sense.
We actually held a bit of a celebratory action. We call them actions. We don't protest because protests can sometimes be really divisive, but we worked really to get a meeting with the commercial director of Arriva at the time, and we took the sixth formers and they dressed up in their parents' work uniforms just to illustrate this point of look how ridiculous that we look dressed as adults.
Put some wrinkles on. Stress. Took the antidepressants.
Just to make that point. You know, when we sang nursery rhymes, and then the commercial director Kim Kane came out of the office and welcomed us in, and we asked her in that meeting, you know, will you advocate for young people's cheaper bus fares? And she did.
Amazing.
And it was amazing. And then Transport North East at the time launched this fair, and then we had this big celebration event because we like to say thank you when things happen, and we invited all the bus companies, Nexus, the mayor at the time, and they all turned up and they all said, you know, without young people telling us these stories and asking for these things, this would not have happened. And now 14 million journeys of young people have taken using this £1 bus fare since 2023. It's amazing.
That is incredible. That's actually something tangible, amazing that's happened by people coming together rather than being opposed to one another. And the school meals thing, Sarah, that's interesting. You've been looking at that as well.
Yeah, so we worked on a lot of different ways on school meals, but we did a project called the Just Change campaign. And again, it came from listening to what people were saying, and it began a conversation about poverty and food poverty and whether food poverty existed, because there's no shortage of food, you just don't have enough money to buy it. And young people saying, you know, if I got my change off my dinner money, then I wouldn't have to use a food bank. And we were like, what do you mean? I was a kid on free school meals, but in the olden days, we used to have to queue for a little ticket, and then you used to take your little ticket and exchange it for a meal. But now it's all a biometric fingerprint system.
Oh, yes, it is, isn't it?
And so young people said that if they were off school on a Monday and they came in on a Tuesday and they scanned their finger, their balance would still be £2.10. Where did Monday's £2.10 go? Because if they had £4.20 on a Tuesday, they could buy more food and they wouldn't be as hungry. Because if they have been off school, then there wouldn't have been any more food in their house. They would have had to go without, most likely. And so we said, we don't know. We've never really thought about that. Why would you if you're not a child on free school meals? And the head teacher went away and looked into it. What happens to the money when young people don't use it? And we basically found that it was retained by the provider of the school meals as profit, who in this case was Chartwells. And Northumbria University did some research for us on it, and they found that £88 million was lost from free school meals annually in this way, either because of child absence or because of young people not spending the full amount. So the Just Change campaign was led by some of our schools to try and get the money rolled forward, the balance. And it was actually a Catholic school trust that first did it and proved it was possible. An amazing head teacher called Dame Maura Reagan in Darlington in the Bishop Hogarth Trust schools. And she changed the IT system. It cost them a couple of £100 to get the technology right, but it meant that in 1 year in one of her schools, £17,000 went back to young people on free school meals to be able to buy more food, because obviously it's not a cash system. All they can do is spend it in the canteen on food and drink.
Oh my goodness, you look after the pennies and the pounds. That's absolutely right.
So we look for clear, winnable solutions to problems.
Really
and from that,
interesting.
over time, as people start to win things, they grow and grow and grow, and it's led to many like national wins that Citizens UK as an organisation has had, and they start from small things like bus fares or free school meals or zebra crossings or whatever.
Incredible. So nothing's out of bounds. So let's chat about it all. And if people want to find out more about the amazing stuff that you're doing, because I think it sounds brilliant and something that's actually happening, something practical, and people coming together in a divisive time, where can they find out more, Michael, about your movement?
Well, on our website, Tyne Away Citizens, just search it and it'll come up. We're on Facebook as well. But we do lots of relational work. That's the kind of main bulk of what we do.
Okay.
So, we would love, we spend lots of time in coffee shops having one-to-one conversations, getting to know people, and anybody would love to have conversations.
So anybody that's listening, whether it might be a business, it might be schools, civil society institution, whoever it is, get involved.
Yeah, and we do training on community organising, which is free and open, and we've got a training session starting next Saturday and the Saturday after. Information will be on the website. Get in touch if you're interested in learning how to use the method yourself.
Fantastic. Sarah, Michael, can't thank you enough for coming in. Thank you so much.